1. Here's my story about a business only caring about their money over a human being. Buckle up. It's a bit long and some important backstory first. I used to have a dermal piercing on my cheekbone about an inch below my eye, important for later, and I worked at a normal retail store as a closing cashier. Now, one thing to know is that as soon as the night shift cashier and closing manager clock in, the cashier is given a till and put on register, while the night manager, NM, and the day manager, DM, lock themselves in the office and count down, and switch the owner of the save from DM to the NM, as well as counting down the day cashier's till so they could go home. All this takes place over roughly 20 to 30 minutes. Meanwhile, I, as the night cashier, am literally by myself until they're done. They can't come out for anything short of robbery or natural disaster. On to the show. I'm by myself one night while the managers do their counting, and I'm up front collecting hand baskets and creating new stacks all around the front end, while watching for customers to show up to my register. I happened to have a fairly tall stack of baskets in my arms when I turned my head and noticed a customer unloading at my register. It just so happens that when I turned my head, my dermal piercing got caught under the lip of the corner of the top basket and promptly ripped out. Immediately there's blood everywhere and it's streaming down my face while I'm trying to nonchalantly ring this lady up without getting blood all over everything, including her items. I don't remember the exact conversation, but she did look very worried at all the blood running down my face and asked if I was all right. I took our industrial paper-type towels and sprayed them with whatever the cleaner was that we used for cleaning the registers and holding it to my wound. All the while trying to ring everybody up one-handed and pretend that I'm fine and nothing is wrong. By now I have a long line because I've been slowed down to one hand and you could tell people were getting pissed. I do remember calling into the office to find out if they were almost done, because I had a customer who refused to be rang up by me, as I had blood all over my counter and scanner, and to be honest, I didn't blame him. Nope, I got yelled at for calling and interrupting their count, and for getting a stupid and ridiculous thing in my face that was now causing problems. It ended up being a disaster of a night. Nobody wanted to be rang up by me because of the one guy speaking out about it loudly, and therefore I had a huge line going into the aisles while waiting for the managers to be done counting. In the end, they didn't write me up because they literally had no grounds to do so, but my boss did tell me that he would have me written up if he could. The DM had to jump on the till and help the NM get the line down and send me to the bathroom to get cleaned up. And they also considered that to be my break for the night. We only got one break every 5.5-hour shift. At no point did it cross anybody's mind to send me home so that I could go to the ER and check if I needed stitches or antibiotics or something. I ended up having to wait until my shift was over to go, and was given 2 stitches and antibiotics. Damn, I felt so underappreciated and not important as a human being, compared to all that money in the safe. Ugh. If you got this far, thanks for listening. 2. I used to work as a cashier at a well-known grocery store, which includes electronics, home decor, furniture, and clothing on top of normal groceries and stuff. I don't know if it's just working in a place like that that gives you some sort of beacon to attract people to ask you for help. But it happened, and still happens all the time. Now, me just being a naturally easygoing person and friendly, this has never bothered me even one bit, and I'm always glad to help if I can. 2 quick examples before I get to my favorite story. First, I'm off the clock, clearly in normal clothes, and at a different branch of the same store. A lady in her mid-20s approaches me with a soft, "Excuse me, but do you work here?" I respond with, "Well, I work for the store, just not this branch." "What are you looking for, though? Maybe I can help." She was looking for a bike tire pump, and I just walked with her over to the home section of the store and quickly found it. We talked the whole way there about her daughter, who was apparently a gem. Secondly, a guy wearing a backwards hat, cargo shorts, has the walk, you get the idea, walks over to me as I'm browsing the children's toys for something for my nephew. "Hey bro, where can I find the napkins?" I don't remember exactly what he was after, but either way we were in a store whose name is in an archer's goal, and I was clearly not dressed to be working there. However, I had just passed by what he was looking for, so I led him over to it, and he gave me a fist bump and a "Thanks, bro!" So, good times. Our main event unfolds. I was visiting home for 2 weeks, crashing at my parents' place for the holidays, and had used all of my vacation for these 2 weeks, but it was totally worth it. I'm shopping at the same chain as the one I'm employed, but this time I know the place like the back of my hand. Wait, when did that get there? My mother worked at this store when my 2 sisters and I were kids. Later, both of my sisters and my older sister's husband all worked here, and it was basically the only place we ever shopped because of this. So we jump forward in time a few years or so, and I'm just here shopping. I have about a quarter of a cart full of groceries and make my way over to the produce section. There I see the elderly woman holding a cucumber inches away from her face, inspecting this bad boy like it's fine art, and she's the curator. I chuckle a little to myself, but curiosity kills, guys, so I ask her, "So, detective, is that cucumber who shot Mr. Bowie?" The smile on that lady's face is the greatest joy this world will ever know, so she laughed and told me she couldn't be sure. Her eyesight was really bad, and she was legally blind. At this, I asked her if she'd like any help shopping for her groceries. "Oh my, that would just be so wonderful." My heart was melting for this old lady, so hell yeah, I was gonna help her. It's then that she held out her shopping list to me, and I took it, and she wrapped her arm in mine like a real dame, boys. I asked her about her family, and she told me very excitedly about her 2 sons, who had each served in the military, one Air Force and one Marines if you're curious, and how the older one's wife was the, and I quote, "actual cutest little duck in the whole dang pond." She asked about my family and how I got on with them, and she chimed in with an occasional, "Oh, they sound so nice," or "such sweet little ducks." I'm not going to lie, I pulled a fast one on her, and we actually walked probably 4 times the distance we needed to, since I took the long way to everything so that I could keep talking to her. Then we get into the checkout line, and we're talking about why she has to drink the nastiness, almond milk, instead of normal milk, spoiler deadly allergies. As we're there, a guy in a suit shows up and calls her by name, and very excitedly talks to her like old friends. He asks her how her shopping has gone today, to which she says, "Oh, I've just had the most wonderful time talking to this young man. You be sure to give him a good raise, all right?" This is the part where I realize that the man was in fact the store director. He looked at me and then back at her confused and said, "Clara, this man doesn't work here." She then got a little confused and asked me why I would go so far out of my way to help a complete stranger. My response, "Not every day you run into the actual cutest duck in the whole dang pond," but I was so glad I did. Oh, that smile again. She thanked me for everything and I went back to my shopping, as the cashier had called someone to help Clara to her car. On my way, I heard her excitedly telling the man in the suit about her shopping trip, and it kept that huge smile on my face a little longer. I did have to start my shopping all over again, since it had been a couple hours, and they had seemingly sent my abandoned cart off to the great beyond. Worth it. 3. I worked in bookstores while I was in college. I started at a small regional bookstore, but eventually, I jumped ship and went to work at a big chain bookstore, which was fun and exciting until it declared bankruptcy 3 months later. I worked the liquidation sale at that chain, but this story comes from the small regional store. I went to that retail job really wanting to do a good job most days. I tried to be a good coworker, pull my own weight, and be friendly to customers. You know, really earn my minimum wage. I truly tried to help customers however I could. You know how 20-year-olds are idiots. Oftentimes people would come in looking for a specific book, which they had seen or heard about on TV, in a magazine, or on the bestseller list. But they would be missing either the title, the author, and/or the genre. If I didn't know the book immediately, I could use the company database and my general internet skills to help them find what they were thinking of, and it was usually an interesting and rewarding process. My coworkers would even sometimes leave customer requests they couldn't solve for me, and usually I was able to figure it out. A lot of older people didn't and don't know how to search the internet, so it usually wasn't much more than a Google search and a few clicks. I sometimes found their lack of basic computer understanding endearing. This was not one of those times. So one evening I'm working alone and this older gentleman came in, and spent about 1 second looking in our regional and state section. He began our interaction by loudly calling to me, standing at the front desk and register.
I'm looking for that new book on Missouri.
We have several new ones, is it?
No, I don't see it here. I heard about it recently. It's by this guy with gray hair. Do you know the one?
I'm sorry, do you have any more information on it? The title or the author's name?
No.
Is it fiction or non-fiction?
Fiction? What? What are you talking about? It's about Missouri. I just heard about it. The author has gray hair.
What's it about?
The author has gray hair.
Do you remember where or how you heard about it?
No.
Okay, let me see what I can find. So I search our database, and then do some basic internet sleuthing, looking for features about new books in local, state, and national media. I seriously doubted I would find it because we almost always heard about local books coming out ahead of time, so we could advertise for them. I don't find anything in my searches. The old man is still huffing from the local section of the store. I give up eventually, but not before I check my basic web resources. I'm sorry, sir, I haven't been able to find anything. If you like, I can take your info down, and if we hear anything that matches the description, we can contact you.
You spent all that time just to come back and tell me you couldn't find it? I should have just gone to Big Bob's Boobs, Books, and Booze store. You're useless.
And he storms off. And that's how I came to do a rude man's homework one night. For the record, the gray-haired author is a mystery to this day. 4. It was a hot summer afternoon at the store I was a cashier for. It had been a relatively normal shift, nothing great, nothing terrible, until she came up to my register. This tiny old woman had a giant bag of birdseed in her cart, laying flatly on the bottom of her cart. Like any normal large item, I grabbed the detachable scanner and moved over to help her with it. Naturally, the birdseed wasn't on the side where the barcode was, because of course it wouldn't be. This is where my nightmare began. I'm just thinking that I'll flip it over, scan it, and ring her out. I can't budge it. This thing was extremely awkwardly shaped, and it was heavy. This one bag filled up her entire cart, and it was stuck. I pushed the sides, pulled the top, but this thing was so heavy I could not move it. So I call for a manager, and one of them, C, comes over. C is a woman who wouldn't break 90 pounds soaking wet. I explain the situation to her, and C buzzes a different manager, L. L isn't a big guy, but he's lean, and he's helped us weaklings with things we can't move before. This old woman is just smiling at us sweetly the whole time, saying things like,
"Oh, I'm sorry it got stuck," or "Here, I'll try to help you."
Meanwhile, C and I are wondering how she got this birdseed into the cart to begin with, because she's about a head shorter and a few pounds lighter than C is. L arrives, and he and C and I can still not really move the thing. You're probably wondering by now how 3 people couldn't move this demon bag of birdseed. Remember how I said it was hot in there? Our AC had given out a few days ago, and we had back-to-back rainstorms for almost a week. Our store was muggy. The material on the bag was slick, so it was almost impossible to get a decent grip on this thing. And whenever you finally thought you got into a decent position to move it, the seeds would shift. And it's time to look for a new spot. After almost 7 minutes of pulling, struggling, and eventually recruiting a 4th person into our struggle, who'd just gotten out of break, we managed to get this heavy-ass bag of birdseed on its side. I rang it up as quickly as I could to make sure I got the barcode while the thing was still good. And finally, managed to check this woman out, took her money. There's another sale. This tiny woman, before she left my register,
"I'm not sure I'll be able to get this in my car. Can you help me?"
I watched L die on the inside, and he left with her. As soon as he left, me and C fell into pieces laughing. There were tears running down my face. C's face was bright red, and it took both of us a good minute to recompose ourselves. This is where my involvement with this story ends, but not where it does for L. It was oppressively hot outside, and he wasn't having an easier time of getting this thing into the car than he did turning it in the store. even with the help of some of the cart pusher guys. Finally, they get it in, she smiles at him, hugs him, and sets off with her giant birdseed to parts unknown. I have no idea how this woman got it out of her car, or where she was going, or what she needed with about 90 pounds of birdseed. But wherever you are, birdseed lady, thanks for the laugh. 5. About 20 years ago, I was working for a corporately held music and DVD shop, in a chain that went the way of the dinosaur quite some time ago. I was just a clerk, not a manager. One afternoon, I had a customer pay with a credit card, and I was 100% sure I'd given him his card back before he walked out the door. However, a few minutes later, the customer returned to scream at me for stealing the credit card he'd certainly got back. The man bullied me and the manager on duty, and the first assistant manager. The one other clerk on duty, who should have been on his break already, was left to ring up a long line of customers by himself. At the time, I was 300 pounds, which I think is about 136 kilos, and my boss was tomboyish, and eventually the customer got himself whipped up enough to call my boss a dyke and me a fat ass. After my boss and I had been on a pointless and fruitless search of the shop for the credit card for about 10 to 15 minutes, the customer demanded that our bodies and any bags and purses we had stashed in the office be searched. My boss's response to this was to request that the customer look through his vehicle while we continued looking through the shop. And another clerk, who was overdue his break, continued to power through the line of folks ready to make payment. I was shocked he did not break it. By the way, thankfully my boss and fellow co-worker never for a moment thought I'd actually stolen the credit card. Shortly after the customer went out to his vehicle, he came back inside to gruffly state that he'd found his card and stormed back out. Did he thank us for our pointless searching? No. Did he apologize for insulting and yelling at us? No, but I guess I ought to be glad that this is about as scary as things got for me during my time working in retail, as I know other retail workers who have had much more trying experiences. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Adventures in Fast Food and Retail, number 97. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I had one of those funny days today. Recording these videos about 6 hours later than I meant to start. Woke up and I was minding my own business. I was like, okay, I should probably go on pay some bills later, because I'd been thinking the night before that I should probably pay my phone bill because it'll be due in soon. And sure enough, I woke up and there was a letter from the bill had come through the door from the phone people. So okay, I'll pay that. So that was the plan. I was going to do that, then start work, because I was going to do like a marathon recording session because I had most of the stories I needed for the rest of the week. But I don't know what it was. I was sitting there and suddenly I felt like aching in my chest. And before anyone panics, no, not that. It's not great, but no, not that. And this has happened now and again. I think it's basically reflux related. I think most of my problems can be related to acid reflux. And no lectures about how to deal with it. I've been dealing with it for years. There's nothing new you can tell me. And it was just one of those annoying flare-ups. You can't predict it. Well, to be honest with you, I've been drinking a lot of Coca-Cola recently, and that seems to agitate it. I can drink as many cans of Red Bull, Rockstar, Relentless as I like, and that doesn't really bother me that much, but something, whatever it is that's in cola, seems to trigger this. And, no, Jenny Bean, I've seen plenty of doctors, I don't want to see any more. Sorry, I was talking to the chat there. And, just whatever it is about cola seems to, and I've been drinking a lot of that recently because, well, I had a big box of it, and I've been drinking those. Plus, cola's nice, and that's probably what's actually triggered this. It was a pretty bad flare-up, so I actually had to go lie down for a while, and I was in bed. And eventually, I got into a comfortable position, and I was like, I could just kind of go to sleep right now. So I did. I let myself go to sleep. Had a good few hours rest, and I woke up and I felt 80% better. So I'll probably be a bit delicate for a few days. That's generally the way things go when I get these flare-ups. Then I'll be fine. That's generally how it is. But I'm well enough to work. I had a good dinner. I'm currently sipping on a can of... Is it passion fruit or something? Passion punch relentless. Actually reminds me, I'll need to get more energy drinks soon. I've only got a couple left. Although, I'm seeing also from the chat that one of my moderators is telling me it's actually not uncommon. I wonder if it's the dye they use in the cola. Or if maybe it's something to do with the caramel flavour. I don't know. Anyway, enough rambling from me. I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.